I was commissioned to make a table and 2 chairs for toddlers. I created a model and plans which you can download from the link in the description. These pieces are for the drawer and the drawer case. I started by cutting all the pieces I needed from 18mm plywood on the table saw. This involves various cross cuts and rip cuts. You could also achieve this using a circular saw, a straight piece of wood and a couple of clamps as a fence, and some more time. I forgot to record drilling the hole for the pull of the drawer, so here's a reenactment of that. I glued up the drawer case and added clamps. I will later reinforce these joints by drilling holes and inserting dowels into them. I cleaned up any glue squeeze out with a damp tissue, as it's easier to do that now rather than later. I glued up the drawer in a similar way and glued on a 3mm piece of ply for the bottom. The glue alone will be sufficient for this drawer because it's small and will only be holding stationery supplies. I removed all of the clamps a day later and test fit the drawer within the drawer case. If everything was glued up correctly and square, then the drawer should slide in and out comfortably. I'll be adding a bit of mineral oil and beeswax blend to the bottom of the drawer after varnishing to reduce the friction when sliding it in and out. I then sanded the drawer smooth before applying finish and setting it to one side. I drilled holes in the bottom and back of the drawer case and added glue and dowel to reinforce the case. The dowel can be easily trimmed off with a flush trim saw. I decided that to make the furniture child-friendly, I would curve or round over any corners. For the tabletop, I traced the curves using this laser cut arc, which I also then use as a flush trim guide on the router table. You could just as well use a roll of tape or yogurt tub or something to trace an arc onto a scrap piece and refine the curve on the scrap and use it as a guide to get 4 consistent corners on the tabletop. I trimmed off the majority of the corner using a bandsaw, but a jigsaw would also work. I then removed the remainder of the waste using a flush trim bit on a router table. Here I'm showing that process on one of the seats for the chairs rather than the tabletop. I then used a handheld router with a round over bit to soften all of the corners on the tabletop and the drawer case. The tabletop is made up of two pieces of 18mm ply to give a total tabletop thickness of 36mm. I decided to screw the drawer onto the bottom half of the tabletop from the top side. These screws will later be hidden. I traced out the position using a pencil on the bottom and then clamped the drawer case onto the underside of the bottom half of the tabletop. I could then pre-drill holes going through the bottom half of the tabletop and the drawer case. I then unclamped and deepened the holes in the drawer case. I also added countersinks to the holes in the tabletop so that the screws would sit flush within the plywood. I screwed the pieces together without any glue as I didn't think it was necessary for this part. I drafted up a quick template for the steel plates for the legs on some paper. This helped in pre-drilling the holes. I spread glue over the underside of the top half of the tabletop and placed the bottom half along with the drawer case on top. I used screws for the leg plates that would also help to clamp the two halves of the tabletop together during the glue up. I also added clamps off camera. After a lot of sanding, I removed the steel plates before adding 3 coats of water-based polyurethane varnish. This furniture needs to be easily wipeable and cleanable, as no doubt children will draw and spill on it. The legs are 35mm pine dowels which I bought and then cut down using this quick holding tool and a Japanese flush trim saw to avoid blowout. I designed and 3D printed this drill guide. There's a link to it on Thingiverse in the description. This will help with drilling straight holes into the ends of the legs. It would have been good to make the hole in the guide bigger and add a bushing to prevent wear to the jig and allow it to last a lot longer. However, I wanted to progress on with the project and not wait for bushings to arrive. If you don't have access to a 3D printer, you could make something similar out of wood and using a drill press instead. I then screwed in threaded inserts, which came as part of a kit with the steel plates. The legs actually became quite wobbly after a short amount of use, and the holes into the legs which go into end grain ended up becoming stripped, which meant that the threaded inserts weren't holding up. The client wanted something that would be very sturdy and survive their children climbing onto the furniture also, so I later revised how I attach the legs. This will be the subject of an upcoming video. Thanks for watching.